Last time I did the all age talk, I told you about my friend Bob and how he'd got a bit angry. Today I'm going to tell you another story about me and Bob, and this is when we went on a journey together. So for those of you that don't remember, this is my friend Bob. We were looking for a waterfall. We were staying at a holiday cottage in Wales, and I had been told that there were some spectacular waterfalls nearby. The car park is called Dolgok Falls Car Park, and from there it was supposed to be a short walk to the falls. There were no directions from the car park, but we set off along the river as we assumed that must be the right direction to start with. We found an information board. We thought, oh, this will be useful, but the map was drawn like a cartoon map, and so it wasn't very helpful for us. But it did show that there were lower, middle, and upper falls. So I was very excited. There's 3 lots of waterfalls to look for. I thought would be great fun. So we continued along the river and came to a bridge. Should we cross it or not cross it? There weren't any signs, but in the end we decided to cross over and continue along the river. Very shortly we came to an amazing view of the waterfall, and I realised that this must be the lower falls. We stood here for some time thinking about how brilliant God's amazing creation was. Bob wanted to stay here, as he thought nothing could be as good as this, and he didn't want to go any further. We'd only walked for 10 minutes so far. But I realised that these were only the lower falls and thought that we should continue to see the middle and the upper falls too. We were getting slightly frustrated at the lack of signs, so we looked around for a path to take us higher and saw some roughly made steps leading upwards to the right. We followed these, although we couldn't see where the path was going to go next. We continued along and came to what we thought was the end of the path, but looking around we saw that it turned sharply and we could continue upwards. At this point we saw some of the path was made and deliberately made into steps, and the rest was just a dirt track. But again we continued, and here we came to a fork in the track. There was no sign. Which way should we go? Bob chose the track that continued along back towards the waterfall, but we found that this was a dead end, although we did get to see another view of the waterfall. We doubled back and continued along on the other fork, still climbing up the hill. We soon got to a path with a fence along the edge, which looked like this must be the right way, although the path was travelling downwards instead of up. But we continued along, there didn't seem to be any other option, and we found it climbed up again soon, and we were rewarded by some gorgeous views of the river. This is probably one of my favourite views there is. The next part of the walk didn't show any obvious path at all. We couldn't see the river. Which way should we go? Bob suggested that we headed in the direction that the sound of the river was coming from. So we decided to make our way as best we could over these mounds and different rocks in the way towards where we thought the river was. Thankfully, this was only a short section, and we soon found the path on the other side. It was amazing how hidden it could be, and yet it was really close by. We now had a much easier path along the river for a time, and we found the middle falls. These were much smaller, but they were still very impressive. We crossed over a helpful bridge. It would have been impossible to continue without that, and continued along. There were more and more gorgeous views and things to look at, and the path was fairly straightforward. There are a number of small caves on the left, which could be explored, and then you could continue on your way. And the river was on the right at all times. Suddenly, up ahead, we saw a long stretch of rough steps going up and up and up. There was a handrail along the edge, so it seemed clear that this was the way. Maybe this would lead to the upper falls. It was hard going, and we went much slower up this stretch. Bob was getting really tired. Halfway up, we decided to stop for a rest and a drink. And after that we continued, and after what seemed like a long time, we reached another fork. We had the choice to turn left for even more steps, or to continue straight on. Bob really wanted a rest now, so we decided to continue straight on and avoid more steps for the time being, and we were finally rewarded with magnificent views of the upper falls, the waterfalls that we had been searching for throughout the journey, and they were certainly worth all of the effort to get there. The wrong turns no longer mattered, and we stood and reflected on the wonder of God's creation and its beauty in our lives. Even Bob said it was worth the hard work to get there. I hope that you enjoyed the story of our journey, and the reason that I wanted to tell you about it today is because we're all on a journey at the moment, a Christian journey of faith. Hebrews chapter 12 verses 1 and 2 says, "So let us run the race that is before us and never give up. We should remove from our lives anything that would get in the way, and we should remove the sin that easily catches us. Let us look only to Jesus." If you think of the upper falls as Jesus and the river of the glimpses that you see of God throughout your life, then we did the right thing on the journey, following the river and focusing on the upper falls as a destination, seeking help from the direction of the river when forks in the road appeared, and following the path even when it looked unclear, not letting the caves distract us, but continuing on our way along the river. It was an adventure on our day out, and we had a wonderful reward of the views throughout it and at the end. But that is nothing compared with the reward that awaits for you as you follow Jesus throughout your life. Everyone is at a different stage of their journey. Maybe you're just at the start or at a fork in the road. Maybe you are faced with a stretch with no clear path. Maybe you're climbing towards the end. But regardless of where you are on your journey, Jesus is with you. Even when you cannot see or hear him, he is there alongside you, and he will help you to find the right path as long as you listen to him. Philippians chapter 3 verse 13 and 14 says, "But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." And maybe today you could have a think about who or what you're focusing on in your life.